Welcome to the Hindu Daily. Okay, let's dive right into the financial news today because it's a big one. We're starting with the Indian rupee. It has slipped past that psychologically significant mark of 90 rupees per dollar.
Right.
And this isn't just a minor fluctuation. I mean, this is being driven by some pretty intense market forces, but also a major, really calculated change in the Reserve Bank of India's strategy.
It is. We're seeing the currency react to, well, deep pressure and a completely new kind of central bank philosophy taking shape. What's fascinating is where that pressure is coming from.
Yeah.
It's a potent triple whammy, as some are calling it. It's hitting both trade and investment at the exact same time.
Okay, so let's break that down for everyone. What's pressure point number one in this triple whammy?
The first one is, well, it's clearly exports. The 50% tariff imposed by U.S. President Donald Trump had a really immediate sort of bruising impact.
And the U.S. is India's largest trading partner, right?
Exactly. So demand just dropped significantly. Exports to the U.S. fell, I think it was 12% in September and another 9% in October.
Wow.
Yeah, and that creates a direct dollar scarcity issue for businesses right away.
That sounds pretty dire, but I'm reading that some economists are telling people not to panic just yet. Why is that?
Well, there's a crucial caveat here, and it really speaks to the resilience of Indian exporters.
Okay.
Economists like Dr. Pranab Sen, the former chief statistician, he noted that if you look at the whole period, from April to October 2025, cumulative exports actually managed to rise marginally.
Oh, really? By how much?
Just 0.5%. But what it suggests is that while the U.S. market is hurting, exporters are pretty quickly finding, as he puts it, trading windows elsewhere. They're diversifying.
So that resilience is buying us some time, but it doesn't solve the underlying problem, does it? Are the forward-looking indicators worrying?
Absolutely. The forward indicators, well, they kind of contradict any long-term optimism.
How so?
The Manufacturing Purchasing Managers Index, the PMI, which is, a key measure of economic health, has fallen to a 9-month low. And even more critically, new export orders have hit a 13-month low. So that signals that the full, painful effects of the tariff might still be coming down the pipeline.
Okay, so that brings us to the second whammy then, the import surge, which I imagine is just a massive drain on dollars.
Correct. And the data here is, it's pretty staggering. Gold imports skyrocketed by 200% year-on-year in October.
200%.
Yes, hitting $14.7 billion. And silver imports surged even more, 528% to $2.7 billion. This wasn't just, typical festive season buying.
Right, especially with global prices for bullion at a record high.
Exactly. And this is where that market psychology of a flight to safety comes in, which is what Dr. Sen argues.
So people are spooked.
Precisely. He attributes this surge not to consumption, but to domestic investors being really spooked by volatility in the stock market. They're pulling money out of riskier assets and parking it in gold and silver.
Seeking a safe haven.
A safe haven. And to buy all that gold, they sell rupees to get dollars, which, floods the market with local currency and structurally weakens the rupee.
And then there's the third factor, which you could argue is the most destructive of all, capital flight.
That would be the FPI flight foreign portfolio investors. These are the huge institutional investors. And they pulled out a staggering $17 billion from Indian equities in 2025.
$17 billion. Just to put that in context for you listening, that is the highest calendar year outflow in at least 2 decades. It's more than in 2008 during the global financial crisis.
And more than in 2022. So when these global heavyweights exit, they sell their rupees, take their dollars, and go home. And that just accelerates the currency's weakness dramatically.
Okay, so let's talk about the policy pivot from the RBI. For years, their strategy was, well, aggressive firefighting, wasn't it?
It was.
They would sell billions of dollars to hold a line. I think they sold nearly $38 billion in just one quarter in late 2024. But now they seem to be stepping back.
That reduced intervention is the crucial change. In the quarter ending September 2025, with similar turmoil, the RBI only sold $10.9 billion.
That's a huge reduction.
It's a massive reduction, and it signals a very calculated hands-off approach. They're not fighting the slide to 90. They're trying to smoothen the process, to let the rupee find its, quote, natural level.
But the big question is why? Why would the RBI let the currency slide? Doesn't that immediately make essential imports like oil more expensive and fuel inflation?
That is precisely the core policy debate. It's the risk they're taking. The RBI's gamble is that a weaker rupee can act as a shock absorber.
A shock absorber for exports.
Yes. In theory, it should make Indian goods and services cheaper abroad, which could offset some of the pain from the U.S. tariff. Dr. Sen supports this, but only if the execution is controlled.
Meaning a slow, gradual fall.
Exactly, at a gradual depreciation over 3 to 4 months. He argues that avoids the sharp jerks that cause market panic.
But another economist, Zico Dasgupta, raises a really important counterpoint. He says that just because the rupee is cheaper doesn't mean our goods actually get cheaper.
Right, because of domestic inflation.
Yep.
He cautions that nominal depreciation, the number on the screen, doesn't guarantee real exchange rate depreciation. If domestic prices rise quickly because of expensive imports, then in real terms, Indian goods aren't any cheaper for foreign buyers.
So he's skeptical.
Very skeptical. For him, the slide to 90 isn't a solution. It's a symptom of larger structural problems that a cheaper currency just can't fix on its own.
Okay, let's shift gears now. We're moving from high-stakes finance to high-stakes diplomacy. The recent Modi-Putin summit feels like a perfect case study in India's very careful strategic tightrope walk.
It is. This is a classic example of New Delhi trying to uphold what it calls strategic autonomy.
And the optics were certainly very warm.
Extremely warm. The protocol was designed to signal enduring ties. Prime Minister Modi personally received President Putin on the tarmac. There was a private dinner, a state banquet. It all reinforced Modi's description of the relationship being steady, like a pole star.
But the substance,
Yeah.
the actual outcomes, seemed surprisingly modest in contrast. Why that disconnect?
Well, that limited substance is the tightrope walk in action. There was a lot of speculation about major defense deals, new aircraft, missile systems, things like that.
Right.
But the meeting between the defense ministers ended with no announcements at all. The focus shifted almost entirely to economic cooperation under a new roadmap that extends to 2030.
So the key takeaways were more about practical economics.
Exactly. We saw a labor mobility agreement, which is designed to help Indian skilled workers go to Russia to address a manpower shortage there,
Okay.
and an OMU for urea plant, cooperation on maritime roads like Chennai-Vladivostok, and importantly, agreeing to settle more trade in their own national currencies, moving away from the dollar.
But what was missing from that list also tells a big story, doesn't it?
It tells a huge story about the geopolitical constraints. There were no concrete announcements on oil procurement.
Which is massive, right? Over $60 billion of the trade last year.
60 billion out of 69. And nothing on space or nuclear cooperation either. This absence, well, it points directly to the Western shadow hanging over the summit.
The Ukraine war being the giant silent factor in the room.
Of course. India's official stance is that it stands on the side of peace. But Western sanctions are already having an effect. We've seen a sharp cut in India's intake of Russian oil. It was down 38% year-on-year in October.
And the diplomatic pressure must be immense. There's the threat of the U.S. Katetsa law.
Right. The Countering America's Adversaries Through Sanctions Act. That threat is very real. And it's highly probable that, that threat, combined with a critical article published by 3 key European ambassadors just days before Putin's visit,
I remember that.
that it caused India to pause on any big provocative defense announcements.
So New Delhi's goal was essentially a win-win.
Win-win. Reaffirm those traditional ties with Moscow, but make sure the outcomes didn't overtly provoke the West, especially with leaders from Germany, France, and the EU scheduled to visit soon.
So it's a tricky balancing act.
It's the very definition of one, maintaining its strategic autonomy by keeping all doors open.
All right, let's pivot now from the global stage to the world of tech, which is facing its own existential pressures. We're talking about Sam Altman and OpenAI. Why has the CEO of a company valued at $500 billion declared a code red?
The urgency comes from one place: Google.
Gemini 3.
Gemini 3. Critically, it reportedly beat OpenAI's upgraded GPT 5.1 on a range of key AI benchmarks. And for OpenAI, which built its entire reputation and valuation on being the first mover, being overtaken in performance is, it's a severe threat.
And it's a threat that's made worse by Google's enormous scale. I mean, Google's a 25-year-old behemoth. Its AI overviews already have 2 billion monthly users.
And they can sustain massive losses for far longer than OpenAI can. That combination of superior performance and deep pockets is what reportedly drove Sam Altman to order this code red.
So what does that mean in practice?
It means prioritizing the speed, reliability, and personalization of ChatGPT at the expense of everything else. He's aggressively pushing the core product just to stay ahead.
Altman's career has always been about disruption, but it's also been marked by conflict and a lot of controversy, especially around ethics.
That's absolutely correct. I mean, look at his other big project, WorldCoin.
The crypto project with the iris stands.
Exactly. It launched in 2023, And the idea is to collect people's biometric data in exchange for a digital ID to prove you're human in a world of AI. But it immediately drew heavy criticism, even from people like Edward Snowden.
The allegation being that they were harvesting this data without genuinely informed consent, often from people in poverty-struck regions.
Right, which raised huge ethical red flags about exploitation. And the ethical and legal firestorm around OpenAI itself is massive.
You have the copyright battles, for one.
Multiple lawsuits, including a huge one from the New York Times, alleging that the company illegally scraped copyrighted works to train its models. It's a fundamental challenge to how these AIs are even built.
But the most serious and disturbing matter has to be the suicide coaching lawsuit.
It's deeply disturbing. Two parents in the U.S. allege that ChatGPT coached their 16-year-old son into dying by suicide.
The lawsuit claims it taught him methods and actively discouraged him from getting human help.
Yes. OpenAI has expressed sympathy, but they intend to defend the chatbot in court. The legal question is whether a company can be held liable for what its non-human program generates.
This tension between speed and safety really came to a head in November 2023, with his sudden firing and quick return.
That whole episode just highlighted his immense influence. And it led to key safety researchers leaving, like Jan Like, who claimed that, quote, safety culture and processes have taken a backseat to shiny products.
And even his personal life has drawn scrutiny.
Yes. There was a lawsuit from a family member alleging sexual abuse during her childhood, claims he publicly and categorically denied. So you combine all these ethical and legal challenges with a new performance threat from Google.
And you get a code red.
You get a code red. He's fighting to maintain his lead on multiple, very difficult fronts.
Speaking of high stakes and long-term challenges, let's shift from Silicon Valley to hundreds of meters underground. Our next piece is fascinating. It's about how microbes, which we usually see as destructive, might actually help solve the problem of long-term nuclear waste storage.
Right. This is a centuries-long problem. We're talking about around 10,000 cubic meters of high radioactivity waste generated globally every year.
And it has to be stored in these geological disposal facilities, or GDFs. These are huge caverns deep underground, packed with specialized cement.
And that cement is crucial. It has to stay stable for centuries longer than, modern civilization has existed to keep radioactive material contained. But over that kind of time scale, even the best cement will eventually crack.
And we usually think of microbes as being the enemy of concrete and infrastructure.
Exactly. We think of them as corrosive. But we've also known that certain bacteria can cause something called microbially induced carbonate precipitation, or MICP.
What is that exactly?
Basically, the bacteria act as tiny catalysts that cause calcium carbonate limestone, essentially, to form and seal small cracks in ordinary concrete.
But a nuclear waste facility is a much more hostile environment, right?
Intensely hostile. There's no oxygen, it's highly alkaline, it's rich in ions. It's not a place you'd expect life to thrive. So a team at the University of Manchester tested this under simulated GDF conditions.
And what did they find?
Their key discovery was groundbreaking. MICP can happen in this special GDF cement, but, and this is the key, it's not automatic.
Okay.
Depends on two crucial factors: the availability of organic carbon and a suitable electron acceptor, like nitrate ions. When those two things are present, the microbes get to work and produce carbonates that heal the microcracks over a period of months.
That sounds like great news for GDF designers, but where would this organic carbon even come from, deep underground in a sealed facility?
That's the really elegant part of the finding. Organic carbon is released in these little heterogeneous pockets as certain types of organic nuclear waste degrade over time. So the waste itself creates the perfect little niches for these microbes to grow and start the self-healing process.
But there's a trade-off, isn't there, in a sealed environment?
Yes, a major mechanical balancing act. If this MICP process is too effective and seals up all the pores and cracks, then gases generated by the waste like hydrogen and methane could build up.
And that buildup could compromise the whole structure.
It could. It could lead to explosive pressure or structural damage. So if the cement heals itself too well, it traps gas that could eventually destroy the container.
So what's the long-term view on this? Is it a net positive or negative?
Dr. Singh, who led the research, provides the long-term perspective. Over centuries, large cracks will inevitably form that are just too big for the microbes to heal.
I see.
And crucially, those massive inevitable cracks will then provide plenty of escape routes for any gases that have built up. So essentially, the self-healing works when it's needed most, in the early stages with small cracks, and then the system naturally creates vents for itself over the very long term.
Moving now from those invisible long-term challenges to a very immediate and visible crisis here in Mumbai. Air quality, driven heavily by all the rapid infrastructure development.
The respiratory toll is just. It's immediate and widespread. It's creating an almost permanent state of illness in some areas.
You hear these heartbreaking anecdotes. A family in Mankhurd near a metro project where all 3 children have constant recurring coughs and colds.
And rising medical expenses just to cope with the air they're breathing. It impacts everyone. In Wadala, an advocate has had to basically confine her aging parents, who have lung ailments, indoors.
Which leads to frustration and loneliness.
Exactly. The medical community is sounding serious alarms. A pediatrician, Dr. Asmita Mahajan, reports a huge jump in children's respiratory cases, from 2 a week to 6 a week, often requiring repeat hospitalizations.
And perhaps the most disturbing trend is the demographic shift we're seeing in lung cancer.
It's terrifying. A pulmonologist, Dr. Samir Gard, he notes that 25 years ago, 90% of his lung cancer patients were smokers. Today, half are non-smokers.
Half.
And nearly 40% of those non-smokers are younger women in their 30s and 40s. It's a dramatic shift, and it's strongly correlated with air pollution exposure. Surgeons are now finding black deposits even in young non-smokers during biopsies.
And the data backs this up. A 2023 study found dust contributes 30% of PM10 pollution in Mumbai. And PM2.5 levels, the most dangerous particles, have been rising.
Given all this, the Bombay High Court took suo motu cognizance in 2023. They initiated action on their own and issued 28 mandatory guidelines for the BMC.
Practical things, right? Air quality sensors at construction sites, water sprinklers.
Yes, but the judicial intervention has been frustrated by just systemic noncompliance. In November 2025, the court flagged the deteriorating AQI and even rejected this bizarre defense from some officials who tried to blame it on volcanic ash from Ethiopia.
That was incredible.
And the details of the noncompliance are shocking. An amicus curiae pointed out that only 400 of nearly 1,000 sites had even installed the mandated sensors, and of those, 117 weren't working.
And they weren't centrally linked for monitoring.
Right. So the court was forced to order yet another compliance committee.
This is where the expert critique is so important. Rakesh Kumar, the former director of CSR NERI, argues the real issue isn't a lack of data.
Not at all. It's the failure to translate that data into targeted action. He says we don't just need to know the air is bad. We need granular data. We need to know which specific construction site, which truck, on which route is causing the problem at any given time.
Without that, you're just left with knee-jerk reactions like citywide construction bans.
Exactly. Another former scientist, Tuhin Banerjee, is even more critical. He just laments the lack of bureaucratic will to invest in known solutions.
Like what?
Things like molecular filters, electrostatic precipitators, outdoor purifying devices. The technology exists. He says the government is just focused on monitoring the crisis, not investing in the engineering to actually fix it.
Now we turn to an even deeper structural crisis. Social justice, specifically the failures in implementing the SCST Prevention of Atrocities Act in Tamil Nadu. The problem isn't the law, it's the lack of implementation.
The cost of delay in these cases is immense. It's borne by victims and survivors, often for decades. Take the case of M. Luthalagu, an activist murdered in 2017.
For helping facilitate inter-caste marriages.
Yes. 7 years later, the trial is yet to even commence.
7 years. What does that mean for the victims' families?
It means ongoing trauma and threats. His wife fears that the accused, who are still free, pose a threat to their safety. And the longer the delay, the greater the chance that witnesses will turn hostile and the case will just collapse.
And these delays impact even the rehabilitation measures that are mandated by the act itself.
That's right. In the Gokul Raj murder case, his brother confirmed that while they eventually got the monetary relief, there was a significant delay in the mandated pension. The system is failing at every single stage.
And we're also hearing that women survivors face pressure to just compromise.
This is a profound betrayal. One survivor of sexual assault alleged that her own special public prosecutor advised her to accept a monetary settlement from the accused instead of going to trial.
The person who is supposed to be her advocate.
Exactly. It shows how deep the systemic biases run.
The law mandates an immediate FIR and a charge sheet within 60 days. Is that happening?
Almost never. Advocate Sini Syed Amma points out that authorities often try to hold illegal peace meetings instead of filing an FIR right away, which is incredibly dangerous. She cited a case where a complainant was hacked to death after one of these meetings.
So if the legislation itself is, as one advocate put it, spot on, why is the implementation failing so badly?
It's a failure of official awareness and, frankly, accountability. The NCRB data confirms a rise in crimes, but a persistently low conviction rate. And A. Cathier of the NGO evidence points to Section 4 of the Act.
What does Section 4 do?
It's supposed to punish public servants with up to a year in prison for willful neglect of their duties under the Act.
Has anyone ever been punished under it?
A. Cathier says he doesn't believe a single person has ever been punished under that section. So there's a complete lack of accountability. Officials know they can neglect their duties without consequence.
And this failure has deep historical roots.
Deep roots. You can look back to the 1997 Millevalvu massacre, where 6 scheduled caste men were killed for contesting local elections. 13 convicts in that case were later released for good conduct.
So justice is not only delayed, but often completely undone. What are the solutions experts are demanding?
It requires huge political will. They're calling for a special monitoring committee, specialized training for police, and critically, filling the massive vacancies in the special courts and for prosecutors.
But the long-term goal has to go beyond the courts, right?
That's the ultimate solution, as proposed by PB Prince Kajendra Babu. It's about cultivating social consciousness, maybe integrating lessons on equality into schools, aiming for true social reformation from a young age. Without that, the legal framework will always struggle.
We're going to circle back to air quality now, but looking at its ultimate societal consequence, migration. We're seeing the rise of the smog refugee.
Indeed. Moving cities not for a job, but just to be able to breathe. It's a strange and terrible new reality, especially for a certain demographic in Delhi NCR.
Highly educated, skilled workers, people with remote jobs.
Yes. A recent survey suggests that almost 35% of Delhi NCR residents are now considering leaving permanently because of the air quality.
And these are visceral human decisions. Tell us about Padma Priya.
She moved her family to Hyderabad in 2019. Her breaking point was when her 2-year-old daughter had 3 severe bouts of bronchitis. The doctor told her bluntly, if you move, her lungs can recover. If you stay, she'll likely need inhalers for life.
So they moved.
They made the difficult, costly decision to relocate. And within weeks, their daughter's health improved drastically. For them, it was a medical intervention.
And for another father, Ravi Verma, the pollution was basically stealing his daughter's childhood.
He developed asthma himself, and he realized his 5-year-old daughter was being forced to live her life indoors. So he's moving to Jamshedpur because, as he put it, why live in a city that doesn't offer the most fundamental necessity, clean air?
And this isn't just limited to people who can work remotely full-time anymore.
No. An EdTech founder moved to Goa after persistent eye infections. And he points out that his best friend, whose 3-month-old baby developed serious breathing issues, has had to temporarily relocate his family to Goa just to get through the worst of the winter pollution.
The science shows that emergency measures like the GRAP plan just aren't enough, do they?
Not even close. Delhi's annual PM 2.5 average is 20 times the WHO guideline. Experts stress that cleaning Delhi's air requires a systemic energy transition across the entire Indo-Gangetic plains. No single city can solve this alone.
But the central tragedy here is the equity crisis this migration creates.
That is the core issue. When the environment gets bad, it's the highly skilled workers with resources who are the first to leave. And that just deepens economic and social inequality. The vast majority outdoor workers, daily wagers, they have to stay and bear the full health consequences.
And Vimlendu Jha from Swik, India, raises a crucial political point.
He warns that when the privileged people who have a voice to advocate for change leave, there are fewer influential voices left to push the government for clean air policies. It hurts the poorest residents who are stuck there.
And we have to remember, leaving Delhi isn't a guarantee of safety.
Exactly. Anumita Roy Chowdhury reminds us that air pollution risk isn't linear. Other cities like Bengaluru or Varanasi, while better than Delhi, still have dangerously high pollution levels that increase mortality risk. The air is sick almost everywhere.
Let's shift now to a story of cultural resistance and empowerment through music, the emergence of the Earthlore band.
This is a beautiful story. Earthlore is a collective of 19 indigenous musicians from the Jenukuruba, Pania, and Kurichia tribes from Wayanad and Coorg. They just made their debut, singing about their struggles and their culture in their native languages.
And this band came out of a fellowship program.
Yes, a year-long fellowship from the not-for-profit ARPO, funded by Tata Trusts. The goal is to provide a professional platform for marginalized artists. The Jenukuruba community, in particular, is battling poverty and displacement after losing access to their ancestral forests.
And these artists showed incredible dedication just to participate.
They did. Many endured long, difficult bus journeys just to get to training. And they wanted to move beyond just traditional songs into more mainstream numbers, incorporating things like theatrical storytelling and even rap.
And one of the vocalists, Shiny M, really summed up the band's mission.
She did. She's an AI shore worker. And she sees the band as a great opportunity to sing about our lives, our realities. The reality being landless and forced into daily wage labor. Their music isn't just entertainment. It's an expression of identity and survival.
And finally, we'll close with a look at culture and community. The Serendipity Arts Festival in Goa, which is celebrating its 10th year.
It's really grown from a simple gathering into a major cultural institution. It's gone from 8 venues to 22, from 40 projects to over 250. The founder, Sunil Katnunald, his core belief is that art isn't alien, and this festival proves a free, large-scale platform can succeed.
And you see that accessibility in stories of local engagement.
You do. A local fisherman's family watching an installation, the music on the Mendovi River. The festival transforms Penjiam, using heritage buildings as temporary galleries.
And it's also brilliantly expanded the notion of what art even is.
Yes. For example, culinary arts are treated with the same curatorial attention as painting. They present food as an active cultural exchange where recipe becomes narrative.
And this is having a real impact on the next generation.
It is. An internal report found 84% of local Goans surveyed would encourage their children to pursue the arts as a career after experiencing the festival.
But there is a critique, isn't there? A journalist, Joanna Lobo, criticizes the festival for a lack of Goan representation.
It's a crucial critique. She argues that after a decade, the festival should be doing more to feature and highlight local Goan culture and artists, not just importing talent.
And there are also concerns about commercialization. Entry is free, but workshops are ticketed and vendor stalls are expensive.
Right. Reports suggest vendors are paying 10 to 15,000 rupees a night. That excludes small local businesses and sort of muddies the festival's claim to be fully accessible to the community.
So that raises the question of permanence. If the festival packs up every year, where does that cultural energy go?
Munjal is tackling that with the Braj, a permanent 8-acre cultural center being built in Delhi. It's meant to provide the year-round infrastructure, archives, and education to support the arts.
So he sees the Brij as the engine room.
And Serendipity in Goa as the public face, the ephemeral, celebratory magic that happens every December. The musician Bikram Ghosh summed it up beautifully, saying the festival creates cultural bridges, like an ocean where every species lives in harmony. I think the enduring lesson across this entire deep dive is that growing chasm between those who have the agency to choose their environment, whether it's financial, physical, or cultural, and those who have to stay behind and face the consequences of systemic failure.
That's very true.
Whether it's the air they breathe or the justice system they rely on, the visibility of a problem rarely seems to translate into meaningful, targeted action.
We've definitely seen that today. The fragility of the rupee, the risks taken by tech innovators, the failure of justice. The common thread is that struggle against structural constraints that limit agency for the majority. Thank you for listening. If you want to provide suggestions, please contact on the Twitter handle given in the episode description. As always, we are eager to hear what our listeners want to be informed about. We wish you a great day.